What about Brendan Rodgers going back to Celtic for a second time? Is that a move that makes sense for both parties?
Only Brendan can answer that, but I tell you what it does, because obviously my focus is on the other side of Glasgow. I think Brendan, in going back, this is a worry for me as a Rangers man. My worry would be that he's asked for assurances in terms of budgets, what he's going to spend, how much he can spend. Because I'm sure Brendan, if he had sat, would have got other job offers back in England. Maybe not in the Premier League, but certainly top end of the Championship.
Yeah.
So it worries me slightly that he's gone back there for that fact alone, that his promises will have been made to him, which is about budgets, how much he can spend, and that ain't good news for Rangers.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody's welcoming him back. I mean, the Green Brigade, you know them, the Ultras group up at Celtic Park, they tweeted a picture last night showing a banner that they raised when Brendan quit Celtic for Leicester in 2019. You traded immortality for mediocrity. Never a Celt, always a fraud.
That was a call he made. That job at the time at Leicester was much coveted. A lot of people fancied that job. And I think if he hadn't said yes to it at that time, someone else would have had it. I know they won the FA Cup, but ultimately it didn't work out for him because, the longer you're at a football club, as I see it, the longer you're at a football club, the stronger your group should be and your team should be. So in that respect, he failed at Leicester. He's going back to a club. I'll come back to it. It's not easy managing Rangers. Celtic will be the exact same. You're under the spotlight all the time. One draw against a team can have you down as an absolute dud and you don't know what you're doing. You spend money. You can buy one player in Scotland. That one player is worth more money than the whole team you're playing against. So of course you're going to win. But it's not like that.
No.
What I worked out in Glasgow for both, and it must be the exact same for Glasgow Celtic. You play against two types of players. You're playing against someone who, in my case, wanted to be a Rangers player, so he's trying out his skin to catch your eye, or he's really a Celtic supporter and is trying his socks off because he doesn't like you. So those two teams they never play an easy game. There's always a bit of a war to be fought.
In his time at Celtic, did Postecoglou impress you? He certainly caught the eye elsewhere, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. He was successful. What else can you say? He was successful.
So can he transfer that success from Celtic to Tottenham?
I think it's a really hard. I've given up trying to predict how managers will do. If I was being honest, I think you'll find it difficult, and I think it's the structure of the football club there. 22 years. Daniel Levy's been there. One League Cup. It's always the manager's fault. Really. And Simon's chuckling.
Are you
googling? Nothing's changed.
No, I'm googling I'm googling your charity to keep abreast of it, so I can keep on giving you updates. You're now up to 1.182 million. So you've had another 25 grand in the last 5 minutes.
Thank you very much.
That's what I'm googling.
Have you donated anything?
Of course I have. Of course I have.
Anyway,
to be fair, he has. I know that for a fact.
And I met him in an Italian restaurant in Glasgow. Really good guy. I think, when you look at the kind of managers, and it might just be he's quiet. He's calculating in the nicest possible way.
Oh yeah.
And he knows his stuff. And maybe he is what they need. But I come back to it. When you stand back as a neutral. And that's hard for me with Spurs because that was my first love. I started there. I don't think they're a great group. And they're so over-reliant on Harry. And Son didn't really perform last year. It's what we've seen from him in the past. Start the season, Harry does a hamstring in pre-season because he's getting to that age where he might start to get a few muscle injuries. Who do they turn to? I come back to it. It's how that club has been controlled from the very top, and I'm trying to drag Simon into the conversation here.
Oh, he'll come into it.
And I think that's where your problem lies. You cannot, as one of the genuinely big football clubs in our country, win one League Cup in 22 years. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And you would admit that. And Levy would admit that.
It's not a case of admitting it. It's a case of it's accepting the reality of it's not really an ideal scenario for Tottenham Hotspur to have, as Graeme says, but they've snatched defeat from the jaws of victory on a number of occasions. So if you're going to blame one individual for the structure of a football club, then you need to bring everybody else with you, because when you're in a Champions League final, you don't really turn up. When you're in FA Cup semi-finals and you don't really turn up. When you're in FA Cup quarter-finals and you're playing against championship sides and you don't really turn up. When you're in a season where Leicester win the Premier League and you have an opportunity to win it and you don't, then you have to look at the reality of why that is. And you can't just attribute all of that to Daniel Levy or to Joe Lewis.
Well,
you have to look at...
Of course you can.
Well, you can, because that's where you sit.
No.
If you were sitting somewhere else, you might have a bit more equitability in your outcome. Because if you're going to say that Pochettino, if Daniel Levy's got all these decisions wrong, and I find myself always seeming to defend him, but I'm trying to find balance in the conversation, then all the things that were done right when they were doing well, he also has to be credited for. But he wasn't. Pochettino was credited with that. The board of directors at Tottenham were given...
What did they win?
Well, they got to Champions League finals.
Well, they shouldn't have got there,
but I've just listed the things that they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory from.
Do you accept this? When you're the ultimate decision maker,
yep,
your choice is who you have as director of football, who you have as on your transfer committee. You are delegating powers to other people. So ultimately, when you start off,
and they're your responsibility.
They are your responsibility. You have chosen them.
Of course,
you've delegated the power to these people.
When you fire a manager, it's a failing of an owner.
Ultimately, yeah.
Of course it is, because you failed to get from the person you saw in the first place. But then you've got a new breed of managers.
There seems to be a constant with Spurs.
No, I agree.
That constant is...
I agree that they don't have enough money to compete with the guys at the top.
No, it's not enough money. I'm not sure how much say the actual football people have. I come back to it.
There's no appetite for Joe Lewis to put money in this football club.
The number one thing you have to get right at a football club, above everything else, above the manager you've got, above the training ground you've built, above the stadium you play football in, is recruitment. That is the number one thing you have to get right.
Well, they recruited Son, didn't they? That argument could be made. We can make.
Well, hold on. Can I go back to? Let's go back a few years.
The most important figure is the manager, isn't he?
No, the most important thing you have to get right is recruitment. So it's an argument for the guy who's making those decisions, which I believe that Daniel Levy has a big say in that. And so therefore, the problem starts with him, and the problem finishes with him.
Probably the big say he has on it, insofar as he has a say, because all of us have a say, because it's our cheque that we're writing. And the say will extend to, I'm not writing a cheque out for that amount of money.
He's listening to the wrong people.
Or maybe he is. But first of all, Tottenham Hotspur will not win a league when you've got powerhouses. The exception has been Leicester. But predominantly, the league has been won by the guys that have the most money.
We're not talking about one league trophy in 22 years.
Okay, Graeme, if you're in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup against Sheffield United this year, and you don't overcome Sheffield United, and you have to look at yourself and say, why are this group of players, who's managing them, who's inspiring them, who's making them accountable for their outcomes? But if you've got the fifth largest wage bill and the sixth most expensive playing squad, where do you really genuinely expect to finish in a league that's pretty much dominated by the people that have got the most money? You're going to finish fifth or sixth. So there's an argument at times that Tottenham Hotspur, and I'll take your argument entirely about FA Cups and League Cups, that they should have won one of those.
They should have.
In the last 14, 15 years. And they had an opportunity this year. But I tell you what they would have done. They would have beaten Sheffield United in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. They'd have beaten whoever they beat in the semi-finals. They got against Man City and bang. When it got smashed by Man City.
Yeah. Do they win something? Does Postecoglou buck the trend? Do they win something under him?
We don't know. It's
They might. He might just be the guy. Do you know?
He might and he might not. I mean, there's some big names before him. People that are, serial winners, as he has been in both Japan, I think he won stuff, and in Scotland. Yeah. He may be, his message that he gets across to his players might be the difference. But I come back to it.
Different attitude approaching the club, maybe as well.
But I think
Conte and Mourinho winning, they're doing everyone a favour.
You're looking at the players they have, and then that comes back to who's chose those players. I come back to the number one thing you have to get right is recruitment.
Manager.
Okay.
Recruitment.
Well, managers involved in it.
They've got Kulusevski in a permanent, and they're going after Maddison apparently. So we'll see what happens regarding that.
He's a player.
Oh yeah.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker.